The next session is about security. I would like to request all the dignitaries to take seat. And also the invitees to take your seat, because and also a special request, when the session is on, please just don't stand up and walk in between, but it disturbs the concentration of both the panelists and the other listeners also. At least wait for the end of the session to move in between. The next session is about security, and it has one of the best panels. The title of the subject is Issues of the Northeast like Drugs, Insurgency, Terrorism, Border, Conflicts, etc. Are these affecting the growth of the region? As the insurgency has waned over the past years, the geopolitics and specter of China has continued to put the Northeast Indians in tenterhooks with Myanmar fast becoming the Asia's Ukraine. The unending Naga equation, continuous flow of drugs from across the border, and growth of radical elements in Bangladesh, besides changing dynamics of populace, has kept the region in the boiling pot. To discuss that, we have a very, very strong panel. Let me welcome them one by one. Lieutenant General Rana Pratap Kalita, GOC of the Eastern Command, first general from the region to take the control of the coveted post of the Fort William. Then Mr. G.P. Singh, Special DGP of Assam Police. The man is at the forefront of almost every major crisis over the past few decades in Assam. Mr. Subimal Bhattacharya, Global Cybersecurity Policy Advisor, former country head of General Dynamics, a top U.S. defense corporation. And Mr. Sanjay Hajarika, who needs no more introduction, but still, for me, renowned author and a veteran journalist. The session shall be conducted by Sunit Kumar Bhuya. Over to Mr. Bhuya. Once again, this time I would like to keep some more questions. You know the WhatsApps be pointed, and there are a very strong panels, so I'm sure all the students from JNU and all the universities you have, the Delhi University, you will have some more questions. So over to Sunit Kumar Bhuya. Thank you. Oh, by the way, sorry. Before that, the rituals, the felicitations.
সকলোকে স্বাগতম জনাইছো ইস্যুস অফ নৰ্থ ইষ্ট ইণ্ডিয়া লাইক ড্ৰাগছ ইনচাৰ্জেঞ্চি টেৰৰিজিম border conflicts etc are this affecting the growth of the region অত্যন্ত গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ আৰু যিসকল মঞ্চত আছে তেখেত সকলো নতুনকৈ পৰিচয় কৰিবলগীয়া নাই আৰু বিষয়টো আজিৰ দিনটোৰ বা আজিৰ সময়ত যথেষ্ট গুৰুত্বপূৰ্ণ আৰু আলোচনা কৰিবলগা বিষয় প্ৰথমতে আমি সকলোখিনিৰ পৰা 5 মিনিটকৈ ওপেনিং ৰিমাৰ্কছ বিষয়টোৰ ওপৰত বিচাৰিম কিন্তু তাৰ আগতে মই এটা কথা ক'ব বিচাৰো মোৰ এটা ব্যক্তিগত অভিজ্ঞতা আমাৰ বয়স যেতিয়া 6-7 বছৰ আছিল তেতিয়া ঘৰুৱাভাৱে আমাক প্ৰথম হিন্দী ক'বলৈ যেতিয়া শিকাইছিল আমাৰ নিচিনা 38 39 এই বয়সৰ মানুহখিনিক আমি প্ৰথম হিন্দী শিকিছিলোঁ মে আলফা নহি হওঁ আমাক ক'বলৈ শিকোৱা হৈছিল সেই অসমখন আৰু আজিৰ অসমখন সেই পৰিৱেশ আৰু আজিৰ পৰিৱেশ একেই আছে নে সলনি হৈছে নে প্ৰথমতে যেতিয়া হিন্দী শিকোৱা হয় যে সেই ধৰণৰ হিন্দী শিকোৱাবলগীয়া আজিৰ দিনটোত হৈ আছে নেকি নিৰ্মুখভাৱে আলোচনা কৰিম প্ৰথমতে ওপেনিং ৰিমাৰ্কছ ৰাণা প্ৰতাপ কলিতা ছাৰ আপোনাৰ পৰা 5 মিনিট সময়
Morning, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank Jayanta Boru and his team from Pratidin Times for conducting this event at the national capital and bringing the regional media into a national stage. And I think we all must compliment you and your team for this event. And firstly, Northeast, if we speak of Northeast, whether you talk of security situation or for facilitating or following up the Act-East policy of the government or for the nation building as such, it has got a huge role to play. First of all, I think we must appreciate the role the Northeast has played over the years, even before independence and after independence as well. I'll restrict my conversation to the security dynamics only. As far as Northeast is concerned, we all are aware that it has got huge security implications for the entire nation. If we talk about the land borders, 40% of the India's land borders is located in Northeast because we share borders with 5 of the countries, including partial borders with Nepal as well. And mostly, of course, with Bangladesh, Myanmar, China, and Bhutan. And the entire Northeast, as you are all aware, is connected through a very small land corridor, which we call a Siliguri corridor, which is narrowest, at its narrowest, it's about 20 kilometers. The security corridor, by its location, geographic disposition, has a huge implications for the entire Northeast as well. Any disruption in communication or any sort of activity in Siliguri corridor, whether in form of hybrid warfare, has a huge implication for the entire Northeast. So for anything to take place or any development to take place in Northeast, I would say that Siliguri corridor plays a huge role. Having said that, as far as borders are concerned, we all are familiar with the situation along the Indo-China border in Sikkim and Arunachal as it pertains to the Northeast. The situation in the Indo-Bangladesh border is generally stable. We all are familiar with the that population migration that takes place once in a while, as also the cattle smuggling, which has become a big nuisance over the years. But last about couple of years, it has been going down. As far as Myanmar is concerned, it has got a different type of complexities. I would say that there was a line which was drawn which drew the boundary between the ethnic community itself. So you have, like in a village called Lungwa in Nagaland in Mon district, you have the house of the headman of the village, which half of it is in India and half of it is in Myanmar. So that sort of complexity exists because the people of same ethnicity got divided by an artificial line called border. So you have something called as free move regime which takes place across the Indo-Myanmar border of the people who inhabited those areas. So therefore, the inimical elements, that's the insurgent groups which are operating in Myanmar, their movement across the border get facilitated because of this free move regime. And they can come in the garb of the normal local civilians and carry out drug trafficking as well as weapon smuggling, I think, about which we are going to talk later as well. So that sort of raises certain amount of challenges for us to control or have some sort of a positive control over the movement of people across the border. As far as the Indo-China border is concerned, we all are familiar with what happened in 2017 in Doklam in Sikkim, which resulted in 73 days standoff between the forces of India and China. In 2020, as an aftermath of what happened in Galwan in eastern Ladakh, we had some sort of a raised or escalation in the border in Arunachal as well as in Sikkim. However, thereafter the things have stabilized. There are certain robust border mechanisms which exist between the two countries in form of 5 agreements. So we resort to those mechanisms to resolve any sort of situation which happens on ground at the tactical level. As far as the insurgency situation is concerned, I think Assam has more or less stabilized, except for the 4 districts, like what the anchor has said. What used to be the situation earlier, incidentally, when I was a student in the early 80s when I was in NDA, and I used to go on leave whenever I used to be in my hometown, Rangia, during leave. So I used to always carry my I card because you don't know when the CRPF Jawan used to come chasing us And the ICOT was the savior the defense ICOT was the savior for me as well as my friends. So from that time, I think we have moved a long way. Definitely we have. But what I would like to call upon the young or the youth today is, if you are not able to reap the dividends of this peace which have been established, after huge challenges by a lot of people, a lot of sacrifices by the armed forces, police, which I'm sure GP Singh would be able to talk about in much more great detail, as also the people. Let's not forget the people who have sacrificed the maximum. So all of us have paid a huge dividend to achieve that semblance of peace in Assam and in neighboring states. Now it's for the youth to exploit these dividends of peace and development which has started by bringing up Assam and the neighboring states as well. Otherwise, it will be a failure from our side. That's what I perceive the situation to be. In the other states, Mizoram, Meghalaya, and Tripura, I would say the insurgency have more or less died down. In Tripura, there have been some attempts recently of trying to revive with some amount of funding and some amount of support from some elements, but that is still under control. Nagaland, we all are familiar with the discussions that are going on between the center, state, and the Naga insurgent groups, mainly NSC and IMM, the NNPGs. I'm sure with the signing of the Naga Peace Accord, the things will get stabilized. As also, that would also facilitate stabilization of the security situation in Manipur as well. Because Manipur situation is intrinsically related to the situation in Nagaland because of the presence of a huge Naga population in Nagaland, in Manipur. I'm sure as we go along, with the reduced violence level, recently about a couple of months back, Armed Forces Special Power Act has been revoked in certain areas, major part of Assam, certain areas in Nagaland and Manipur. As the security situation improves, I'm sure more of such denotification would take place, which should facilitate peace and development so that our young youth can pursue their goals without any inhibition. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hesil opening remarks কথাখিনি ক'লে গোটেইখিনি ছাৰে আমাৰ ফালৰ পৰা কিছুমান প্ৰশ্ন আছে কথাখিনি প্ৰশ্নখিনি যাম কিন্তু GP Singh sir, your opening remarks regarding this subject.
Good morning, everyone, distinguished panelists here, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege for me to attend this conclave here in Delhi. We generally discuss a lot about what's happening in Northeast and Assam, back home in Assam, but discussing these things in Delhi is definitely a change. And I would like to compliment Pratidin Group for bringing issues of Northeast and Assam specifically to the national center stage and especially the capital. Having said so, today this panel discussion is about various issues, very wide spectrum of issues ranging from drug trafficking, insurgency, AFSPA, and millions of issues that face Northeast. I'm open to discuss everything that anyone wants to talk about, but I would like to put it in a slightly different way, that I want to talk about peace. I want to talk about what General Kolita has just said, that we have to ensure that the dividend of peace is utilized. For me, the situation in Assam, Northeast, specifically in Assam, may be something like glass half full or glass half empty. I see it as a glass half full. And it is incumbent upon people like those who are sitting here in the audience, people who are sitting here in the panel, people back home, people who are there in the government, and people's representative, to ensure that over the period of next decade or so, we can fill this glass to the brim. If not so, we make it as close to the brim as possible. Northeast, especially Assam, is a land of opportunities. I was discussing it with people in the backstage that I have, because of my experience of working in SPG and NIA, I have traveled extensively throughout the globe, having traveled to almost 70 odd countries, and within the country I have traveled to almost every state multiple times. I have seen that the problems that are there in Northeast, I would more specifically talk about Assam, are not such that they do not exist in other parts of the world or other parts of the country. Where we are today in Assam, many states are much behind us. So let us think about the way ahead. Let us talk about how we can change everything so that over the period of next maybe decade or decade and a half, we can take Assam to the place where we can be counted amongst the top performing states. So if we have to really talk in terms of taking Assam there as top performing state, we have to first ensure that the people who are there, whether it is the general public or the government or even people like us, we are the top performing people in individual capacity or in our capacity as government, more so like I am in police, so I have to ensure that the police becomes one of the best and one of the most efficient, proficient and professional police forces in the country. I was discussing it with the UNICEF chief here that since I've traveled quite a bit within the country, I see a huge plus that the people of Assam are generally positive and soft in their approach towards issues like how to deal with children, how to deal with women, how to deal with underprivileged sections of society. We have to leverage these pluses. Once we leverage these pluses, the challenges that we face would all be gone. I fully understand and appreciate that we have a legacy of problems. But every day, if we only talk about problems, we do not reach the solution. We have to start thinking in terms of talking about solutions, talking about the pluses. It's like a human mind. If you only talk about the negatives, your entire outlook would become negative. But if you start talking mostly or thinking mostly about the positives, your outlook would be positive. So this is what I wish to speak about. I am open to answer any question that anyone has. We have done good things. We may have failed on many counts as Assam Police. But that failure, at least in the last few years, has not been because of lack of effort. We would continue to make best of efforts to make Assam one of the best performing states. And generally, this is the commitment of the senior leadership of Assam Police that in coming years, when most of us would hang our boots and demit offices, we would leave behind a better, more professional police force and a better, definitely much better, much improved Assam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sanjay Hazarika, বিষয়টোৰ ওপৰত আপোনাৰ পৰা মই জানিব বিচাৰিম। এইটোত আপোনাৰ লেফ্টৰ পৰা।
Okay. Thank you. ধন্যবাদ Sunit and Minal. Arambhanit, I want to give my appreciation like the others to Pratidin group for actually making us a family again. We are all people who are known in some way to each other, but we have met after many years. General, I'm meeting for the first time, GP after a long time, Subimal. So thank you for bringing us together as friends and family. That's very important at this time. There's several things I want to share.
Sanjay, to close the microphone. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, more power is there are several things I wanted to share because I'm of a time that has seen the rise and fall of Ulfa and of conflict-driven issues in the Northeast, whole of the Northeast. I have seen the Assam movement in its entirety, the fall of the Congress, the rise of regionalism, and the fall of regionalism as we've seen it in the discussions yesterday, Kalida Kothawa, or the diminishing of this. But I want to take a look at the themes or the sub-themes of this and turn it partly as Mr. G.P. Singh has done on its face, ulta, which is I want to look at what are the opportunities within the difficulties. Because as an entrepreneur, all entrepreneurs, whether it's Dalmia or Pratidin, know that in every difficulty there is an opportunity. And you have to see what the opportunity is. And I was thinking, and the General referred to it briefly, about AFSPA. Because it formed a major theme of the Defense Minister's address yesterday, in which he said that AFSPA has been removed. It's not been repealed. It's been removed from large parts of Assam. Parts, the places in Manipur have been extended, and for the first time in its history, Nagaland, it has been removed from several, the jurisdiction of several police stations in Nagaland. Now, I've always believed that, I was on the committee that reviewed AFSPA many years ago. And I really didn't believe a day would come when you'd see the government revoking it, removing it, because it needs a strong government to do that. And I think that is something that we appreciate, because in the protection, the AFSPA review committee said very clearly the army needs to be protected, but also the people need to be protected. And the situation, thanks to the armed forces and the police and the other security forces and the people at large, the situation in Assam and other parts of the Northeast has come to a space where peace is the normal and violence is the abnormal. So that is something really that has enabled this amazing turnaround to take place. And I am practical enough to understand that the act will not be repealed, even though I may believe the need for its repeal. I believe that it is sensible to have it on the sidelines, so that because we are surrounded by difficult political and military conditions. That's one point. The second thing I wanted to talk about very briefly was the issue of border conflicts. Now, on my right side is somebody who knows this very closely because he's handled it. But I would like to say that there have been occasions, and I think the Chief Minister, Assam Chief Minister, made this point, these points, 5 points he made when he sought to address this issue soon after the conflict, the border conflict. I think the key issue that we need to focus on is the partnership between communities, that it needs to be an inclusive approach. As Robin says, we can be the big brother and say, take away everything and give everything, but politics and government doesn't work like that. So I think one thing we do need to understand is that when there is a conflict in any part of the country, especially in the Northeast where communication is so important, the supply chains get blocked. Your entire supply chain is affected right down the line, from the manufacturer and the producer to the distributor and the consumer. So it's an economic necessity to have open borders and non-conflicted borders. And I would say that, and there are many young people I see from colleges and universities here, and I see that there are two areas where we can build this better understanding, because without better understanding you won't really get the kind of peace that you need, the peace dividend that the General was speaking of. One is use the natural strengths of the area. What is the natural strength? One is music, the other is sports. So if even in the areas where there is conflict, you can build, have an opportunity for joint music festivals, joint sports festivals, football, whatever it is. These are small steps in building better understanding and opportunities, the word that we spoke of. I'm going to close with one point because, a lot of my life over the past years has been spent traveling in the region, but a lot of time I've also spent traveling on the river, the Brahmaputra. And I spent about 6 weeks recently in Assam and the neighborhood. And some part of that I was on river, boats, and so on. And what you notice is how climate change, and this is going to become a security issue, how climate change is impacting people's lives, especially on the river and by the river. Because the river is becoming shallower because of human interventions and the irregular weather patterns, and forcing people to leave. And the people who are leaving are often unskilled. So you have the problem that Robin Hebel speaks about, which is like a form of trafficking, which is going to grow. And the challenges of that are something that we need to address and look at. And it is younger people who will be having to deal with this, because you're here, you're addressing these issues in your daily lives. And people like Subimal, who is a cyber security expert and uses, is very familiar with the work of artificial intelligence. These are the ways of addressing some of these issues, not the traditional ways. So I'll stop here and...
Okay. Thank you, Sanjay. Subimal Bhattacharya, please, your opening remarks.
At the outset, my salutations to my distinguished panelists, Mr. Jayanta Barua and the whole Pratidin Media Network family, distinguished audience, and my dear students. Indeed, it's a real privilege to be among such dignitaries here. But most important is to note that a media group from Assam has come to Delhi at Manekshaw Center to do an event like this, where so many issues afflicting the region are discussed by people who are dealing with it. Now, as someone who has now been living in Delhi for almost 2 decades, and having my roots in a 6th scheduled district of Assam, an ex-Cottonian, I think, coming here and talking to the people, being amidst everyone, although many of the students from our region are here, is very, very important. At 20, I left Assam from being a Cottonian. And in a couple of months, I'll be 50. Now, in this 30 years that I've been out of the state, mostly in the capital and a little bit in the US, I always try to connect myself and see that being someone from Northeast and specifically from a 6th schedule area district where I had the capacity to grow up among about 15, 16 different tribes, Bengalis, Assamese, Nepalis. That cosmopolitan atmosphere that I got way back in the 80s and the 90s, which is reflective in many of the countries that I've visited, as Mr. NGP Singh has also mentioned. It is very important today to relate to the fact that how do we look at our region in the future. We are at a cusp when the age-old issues afflicting the region is sort of changing. The young people are aspiring. Their aspirations are leading them to participation in various levels, leaderships in various roles. And as we deal with still some of the issues, as in the topic, whether it's insurgency, whether it's drug, and how do we see, youths from our region looking into the future? I think this event is very important. The change in Northeast is very resplendent. A lot of infrastructure is being built. That infrastructure building adds to a lot of connectivity. Mr. Hibu mentioned about 4 days taking time to reach his mother. But now if you see, so much of air connectivity and air traffic flow happens in the region. Our former chief minister and the current shipping minister is diligently pushing to see that the National Waterways 2 and National Waterways 16 take the Northeast waterways commerce and movements to a different level. Road connectivity is improving, and my favorite area and my area of work, internet connectivity, is also improving. About 25 years back, I had met one of the first hackers from a place, all of you know, Golaghat in Assam. He was just a 10th pass. We were very impressed that with no formal connectivity around hacking or anything to do with cyber, how did a man from Golaghat come up with those skills and actually perform? So innate talents and skills are always not necessarily reflective of your education, and this is an area where I work today very closely. I headed an American defense company's operations in India. I've had an exposure around the world of different communities and youngsters. I feel today is the time for youths to take up, to go beyond the insurgency and the drug menace. Mr. G.P. Singh leads a fantastic effort in the state of Assam around corruption and vigilance activities. So these are all motivators for youngsters and people to come out and think out of the box and think how they can be entrepreneurs. Today's opportunities around digital commerce and e-commerce gives each of the various groups and individuals to think of being an entrepreneur. I think Chief Minister Assam and other Chief Ministers are pushing for that, culture of not being dependent on a government job and trying to become entrepreneurs in their own rights. So I think that if we take the right steps, if we engage everyone, if we are able to build up on whatever base has been created with the efforts of the Army, Air Force and the police forces and the civil society as such, there is a great future. As Sanjayda mentioned, artificial intelligence, the way gaming, chip technology, everything is going, I see a great opportunity for our youngsters to get involved. For that, we also have to build some capacity in this state to see if, some extent of the engineering colleges or the various other institutions get into that bandwagon. Artificial intelligence goes across sectors. We can possibly solve big time the flood problems of Assam, the issues of, landslides and all other things, the kind of remote sensing data that we get from the Northeastern Space Application Center, those data and all we are really not channelizing to that extent. But what I can confidently say is that, there's so much of visible things on the horizon. The 2 days NEC plenary in Guwahati, I think during the last weekend, listed out a few of the capacity building projects that can happen. Now, when infrastructure is built, when communities are feeling a sense of positivity, the capacity building in communities across the region, across tribes, across interest groups, those all have to be fostered. Then only you can take the benefit of the Act East policy. There is a great connectivity with ASEAN that can be reached. The ambassadors from the European countries and US today look up to the Northeastern region. So if we build up the right capacity, we are also going to be players in that right. To everyone, I think it is very clear that manufacturing is not the biggest story for Northeast. It has to be something around the services sector. It has to be the soft skills that has to be picked up. So I think this is an opportunity. This forum gives all of us to think that now how do we channelize the strength of the youths to be able to take the next leap. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhimullah. Actually, there is a lots of subject which consists this subject particular, lots of event. মই বেসিক্যালি দুটামান বিষয় টাচ কৰিব বিচাৰিম, তাৰপিছতে Q&A লৈ যাব বিচাৰিম, যিহেতু বহুতখিনি মানুহ আছে আৰু বিশেষকৈ ষ্টুডেণ্ট ইউথ জেনেৰেশ্যনৰ পাৰ্টিচিপেণ্টছটো যথেষ্ট আছে। From 2016 to 22, 1,561 youth অসমত বিশেষকৈ অসমৰ পৰা মই স্পেচিফিকেলি অসমৰ কথাটো ক'ব বিচাৰিম বিভিন্ন উগ্ৰ ইনচাৰ্জেণ্ট গ্ৰুপত জইন কৰিছে আৰু তেওঁলোকে এটা বেছিক প্ৰৱণতা ৰিচেণ্টলি আমি দেখিছোঁ দে উইল go to the video, different social media like Facebook and etc. And তেওঁলোকে ক'ব খোজে মই আমুকত আহিছোঁ তমুকত আহিছোঁ এই যিটো প্ৰৱণতা টেণ্ডেঞ্চি এইটো কিয় হৈছে বিশেষকৈ পোষ্ট ক'ভিড পিৰিয়ডটোত গ্ৰেজুৱেলি বস্তুটো আমি দেখা পোৱা গৈছে আৰু সমান্তৰালভাৱে প্ৰায় সেই ছেম ডিউৰেশ্যনতে 7,900 ইউথ বা অন্যান্য বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ ইউথেই হওক বা অন্যান্যই হওক ইনচাৰ্জেঞ্চি গ্ৰুপৰ পৰা ঘূৰি অহাৰ তথ্যও আছে ইউথ জেনেৰেশ্যনৰ এতিয়াও এই যিটো মানসিকতা এইটো কিয় হৈ আছে বা এইটোৰ কাৰণে হাউ টু ৰিডিউচ দিছ টেণ্ডেঞ্চি কলিতা ছাৰ
The question that has been asked, its time duration is from 16 to 22. Actually, there is a lot of change which is coming on a day-to-day basis. What was true 30 years back wasn't true in 2016. What was true in 2016 wasn't true in January 2022. And what was true in January 2022 isn't true now. This is a dynamic situation. We have to see why people go at different points in time. So 16 যেটো হৈছিল এইটো আজি মই এইটো যদি কওঁ যে আজিও এইটো সিচুৱেশ্যন আছে এইটো নহয় আজি এক বছৰ আগত যেতিয়া কোভিডটো প্ৰায় শেষ হ'বলৈ হৈছিলে সেইটো টাইমত কিছুমান ল'ৰা ছোৱালী সংগঠনত গৈছিলে আলফাত গৈছিলে কিন্তু এতিয়া যোৱা 3-4 মাহ 5 মাহ যেটো আমি দেখিছোঁ এইটো যোৱাটো প্ৰায় বন্ধ হৈ গৈছে নতুন সদস্য ভৰ্তি হোৱা নাই There are a couple of things that we have to understand. One is that the role of parents. They have to know what is actually going on in minds of the child and what is he doing on the social media and internet. I would try to equate it with what I saw in 2014, 15, 16 when I was with NIA and we were in the initial stage trying to fight the induction of young boys and girls into what was globally known then as ISIS, ISIL and IS. Indian society saw that despite India having almost 14-15% of Islamic population, the number of people going into ISIS or ISIL was very, very minuscule. Because the parental influence was such that they did not want the boys and girls to join ISIS. Similarly here also, if the parents know generally what is happening, what the kid is doing on the internet, because nowadays recruitment /induction is all through internet. There's no physical meeting anywhere, nobody comes and says that you have to join organization Alpha or any one of these organizations. I'll take few minutes so that I can actually explain this entire thing. You also have to understand that the society and parents have to understand where are these young boys and girls going. They are going to join an organization where there is no democracy, no rule of law. If one person thinks that death penalty has to be given to Mr. X, Y and Z for X, Y or Z reason, the person is killed. Now, that's not how the system works. So, you have to tell, the society has to tell these young boys and girls that this is not the place for you to go. You have studied, you have been educated. You cannot just go into that where there is no future. Last 40 years have shown that organizations like Alpha or others have no future. Next thing that we have been doing, coming back, that similar thing has also happened in some areas in hill districts, in Bodoland. We have been very, very actively and aggressively ensuring that at the first stage itself, when people start trying to form a nucleus around which a armed group would be formed to finish them. And that has worked. Because of that, now we can very, very positively say that now there is no insurgency in Bodo area and virtually no insurgency in hill areas, because all these small groups that tried to form in last 1.5 to 2 years, we have decimated. Most of them have been arrested, brought over ground, and some in course of armed action have been neutralized. Now, again, the narrative has to be that you have to work for progress, development, and financial growth, economic growth of Assam. If that narrative is brought in by all, including the media, the family, the society, the youngsters would not go towards that side, but would put their hearts and soul to ensure that Assam reaches its rightful place amongst the Committee of States of India. Now that is where I have a difference of opinion with most of the people, and when I was discussing this conference issues with Sumit the other day, I had told that there's no gainsaying, discussing about the negatives, what we have gone through in last 10 years, 15 years, 30 years. Let past be past. Let us start with a clean slate. Let us take a vow that over the period of next 10, 15 years, we would take Assam to the greater heights, to the heights that had till now not even been thought of. That should be our aspiration. We should not continue to talk about militant organizations, this, that. Let that be past. Let it be read in history books. Let it be read in books that it was like this in 2016 or 2006 or 1996. Let us not talk about that. Because, boys and girls, Bhaiti Bhanti, that is Assam's past. Future is glorious, future is beautiful. Let us talk about it. The more we continue to talk about the negatives, we would only be clouding our minds with the negative things. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, let us take a vow together that we would not let any of our family member to join any organization which is proscribed by government, which is proscribed by rule of law. We would only go by rule of law, and we would build up together a beautiful Assam.
Thank you. Actually, আপোনাৰ লগত যেতিয়া মই এই কথাখিনি পাতিছিলোঁ, আপুনি একেটা কথাই কৈছিলে যে আমি সদায় আগলৈ চাব লাগে। মই আপোনাৰ পৰা জানিব বিচাৰিছোঁ, what's the road map to go ahead in this situation, present time, from present time?
Well, first and foremost, each one of us has to vow that we will work hard. We will leave that past behind us, that things would come easy to us. Let us all work hard, whichever field each one of us is in. You may be a student, work hard, try to reach the zenith of your educational system. Try to achieve whatever best can be achieved in your educational field. If you are a doctor, try to be the best doctor. I want to have Assam Police as the best, most professional police force. I want to lead by example. I want myself to be as good as a human being and as good professional as I can be. If I can put in 18 hours, 20 hours a day, I want to put in that hours, those 18, 20 hours for the betterment of people of Assam. That is the only roadmap. Each one, whichever field we are in, we have to try to be the best. And let me tell you, when excellence is the norm, there cannot be anything but excellence. When mediocrity is the norm, you would fall below average. So let us all think that we would excel in whichever field we are. Excellence should be our state of mind. Excellence should be the norm that we should be striving for. There is no way we can fail. Failure should not be an option. When we even think of failure as an option, we are keeping a window open for failure. We should always think that the only option that we can think of is success in whatever field we are in. The moment we start thinking of failure, we are opening that window for failing and thinking in our mind that this is my fallback option. No. The main option and the fallback option has to be success in whatever field you are. If you want to be a cobbler, try to be the best cobbler that you can be. All the major shoe companies of the world, most of them started as homegrown cobblers. And today, whether you talk in terms of churches of UK or Salvatore Ferragamo of Italy, they were all cobblers. And today, where they are, multi-billion-dollar industries. So let us do that. Let us only think of being the best. Let us only talk about success. Rest of the things would automatically take care.
Sanjay da?
You know, what I fully agree with what Sri GP has said. You know, we need to change our mindset. অসমীয়াতে এটা এফাকি কথা শুনিছিলোঁ আগতে যে মানে অসমীয়া মানুহবোৰ সদায় ভোজত আগ ৰণত পাছ ভোজ কেন বি কোৰিলেটেড উইথ দি ট্ৰেপিংছ অফ লাইফ দি কমফৰ্ট ইন লাইফ ৰণ মানে অল চেলেঞ্জেছ ইন লাইফ আমি সদায় ৰণত পিছত থাকিলে নহ'ব ইউ হেভ টু মিট দেম হেড ষ্ট্ৰং হেড লং সদায় চেলেঞ্জেছ একচেপ্ট কৰিব শিকিব লাগিব দেট ইজ দ্য লেচন উইচ উই হেভ টু লাৰ্ণ এজ এ কমিউনিটি এভৰিবডি হেজ টু টেক অন দি চেলেঞ্জেছ and not take comfort from the better quality of life and look at only those comforts of life. I think that's the lesson we need to carry home. And as far as the youth is concerned, if you see, like I've been visiting around all over Northeast, particularly in Assam, in last about 3 years, there is a huge potential among the youth of Assam, whether you talk of boys or girls. And we have seen a lot of these Assamese people from Assam, as well as Northeast, coming up harder way in different fields of life. People have excelled, not because of anything provided to them. Nothing has been provided free to them. It is because of sheer hard work, dedication and willpower and perseverance that they have been successful in whatever field of life they have chosen, whether it's a professional career, whether it's a journalism, whether it's sports, you name any field. So the potential is always there. The only thing which is required is a change of mindset, willpower, and hard work. I think that's the message which you need to give to the youth.
Sanjay da? Apuni
মই দুএষাৰ কথা ক'ব বিচাৰিছিলোঁ I agree with both General and Mr. Singh. I just have 3 additional points. At all, we can't forget the past, we have to learn from it. It is history, but we have to learn from it, otherwise we are condemned to repeat some of the mistakes. The second thing is, why are so many young people here from the region? All of us.
Exactly.
We are all in some way migrants. We search for better opportunities, education, livelihoods. So that is one form of out-migration which is taking place, which is positive, but also negative, because it shows that there is a deficiency which needs to be addressed. And as we address those deficiencies now and in the past and in the future, will we be able to move forward? I think that is very critical that we recognize that there are reasons why people move. And I think that the Northeast of today is, as you've said, completely different to what it was 10, 20 years ago. And we are writing a new history. Some of it good, some of it bad, but that's how history is. And the third point is to address the issue of movement, of migration, because something like 25 to 30,000 people leave every year. There are people, I was in a sapori in Dhemaji, and a young man had come from Ahmedabad just for a wedding in the family, and he was going to go back. He's unskilled labor, but he has gone all the way to Ahmedabad. Now, I'm not talking about skilled people who are coming to different metros to work and so on. So the third point is we need to establish capacity for employment in locally in local advantageous situations. Mane jodi bahar karbar hoy, but even if it's IT, whether it's a facility that can be set up, I think that is something that is absolutely critical to addressing the issue of unemployment, because people are migrating because they need jobs and they're not, it's an aspirational thing and we need to meet that aspiration closer to home.
I want to know from Subimalla Chatji, what's your view about the making the roadmap? And after it, Minalda, I think just wait for a while. I will go to the Q&A section. But before going this section, I want to touch one point, drugs, after this issue. Subimalla.
চাওক কালি মই প্ৰভাত বেজবৰুৱা ডাঙৰীয়াৰ প্ৰেজেণ্টেশ্যনটো শুনিছিলোঁ, the tea industry. It's one of our mainstay. It has its issues and all, but তেখেতে ব্ৰেণ্ডিঙৰ কথাটো কৈ আছিলে আৰু সঞ্জয় কৃষ্ণ দাই কোৱালিটিৰ কথাটো কৈ আছিলে। না আজিৰ ডেটৰ ইউথৰ যিবিলাক এছপিৰেশ্যন আছে আৰু যেনেকা চাহ কনজিউম কৰিব বিচাৰে, why don't we think of newer ways of innovation? We have to think that one of the primary mainstays of the economy has been the tea industry. How do we make it attractive? How do we cater to this? And how do we involve this generation into this activity? I agree with Mr. GP Singh. We have to forget the past. If we go back to the past, then we get dragged into it. Now, let's take cyberspace. Let me start with one. Maybe it's a negative thing. Assam, as per NCRB data for 2021, had 13.78% of the cyber crimes in the country. Now, these are very not serious cyber crimes. These are all, some kind of enmity or hate-related stuff. But if someone is sort of motivated, or maybe not motivated, but undertaking a certain crime in the cyberspace, that means a certain familiarization he has about the tools with which you are doing it. So offensive and defensive, most of the tools remain the same. Now, if that is there, that means there is an innate strength that is already existing. Now, why not we look at building up capacity around cyber security, ethical hacking, the long shores of artificial intelligence, blockchain technology. It's so sad to see that, parents are more interested to give tuitions and everything back up with the academic thing to only send their children out. And nobody wants to come back. Where is that effort happening to take our brothers and sisters back? I'm regularly going to the southern Indian cities and all. And every time you are going to a hotel or to a building, invariably security guard or someone in the restaurant is from the northeast. So which means now they are doing their job, but they have already gained a lot of capabilities, and these are all thinking mind youngsters from our region. They're just not a dumb fellow standing and doing a job. Because I talk to them and I see that motivation in them. Dada, ami tat goi kiba koribo paru niki. Boys from Manipur, Nagaland. So how do we motivate them? How do we create an opportunity for them? It is not a government job. It's a more of a societal, entrepreneurial, everyone. The whole ecosystem has to work to get them this opportunity. They bring that experience back to the region, get something started, and today there is a wider market that is available because of the possibilities of various e-commerce mode and all, and the policy support from the government side is there, whether it is the Northeast Industrial Development Scheme or many things on the service sector. And I'm sure each of the chief ministers would rush forward to see if they are able to get the talent back to do something meaningful. Hekarne moi bhabu etia timing is just right to think, how do we get our people back? It's such a bad brain drain that that we have to get them. But why should they stand at a door? A boy from Noga or a Golaghat to stand at the door of a hospital in Hyderabad or Chennai and all. Why cannot he come back and start something around the security space and be doing it? So that must be a common feature. Sanjay also alluded to it. And that effort, I personally feel, is most important. We cannot allow the region to be sort of denuded of its resources because everyone has to seek a job or an employment opportunity abroad. Secondly, just small point I'll make, that actist policy and the efforts of the government with Bangladesh, unfortunately Myanmar is in such a terrible state. But to look beyond that, the effort to improve the relationship with Bangladesh, looking or even factoring the legacy issues that have always been there around illegal immigration. This is again a great, I would say, business opportunity also. Bangladesh is doing very well business-wise, in terms of not only the governments, but their aspirational aspect to be strong in the ASEAN or primarily the Western world. Now, there is a thinking that how do we also integrate with the Northeast and all. Whatever they would have opened, they have opened a mission in Guwahati and all. The Eastern High Commissioner goes around. There are regular engagements. Our Chief Minister also goes. There is some Silchar Silet meet happening end of the month. So how we also plug in our economy with their economy at the ground level, that informal trade, making it into a formal trade, so I think there's a lot of work in progress where all of us have to participate.
এটা বিশেষ মই সময়টো মোৰ খুব কমি আহিছে হ'লেও মই এইটো টাচ নকৰিলে মোৰ একেবাৰে নহ'ব বা গোটেই বস্তুটো ইনকমপ্লিট হ'ব যে প্ৰথমতে মই জিপি সিং নগৰী আছে আই এম গো টু থেংকছ আছাম পুলিচ এগেইনষ্ট ড্ৰাগছ লাষ্ট ইয়াৰ্ছ প্ৰায় more than 4,000 খুব বেছি প্ৰাদুৰ্ভাৱ হৈছে খুব বেছিকৈ শিপাইছে মই আৰু অসম বা নৰ্থ ইষ্ট গোটেইটো এটা ট্ৰেনজিট কেম্পত পৰিণত হৈছে ড্ৰাগছ পেডলিঙৰ কাৰণে বিভিন্ন কাৰণতেই হওক বা আৰু যিখিনি ড্ৰাগছ বিভিন্ন সময়ত ধ্বংস কৰা হৈছে বা কিবা হৈছে যুৱ প্ৰজন্মৰ মাজত ইমান বেছিকৈ শিপাইছে আচলতে এই গোটেই এই দিশটোত যেনেকৈ ধ্বংসৰ দিশটোত যেনেকৈ গোটেই অসম আৰক্ষীয়ে এটা ইতিবাচক পদক্ষেপ গ্ৰহণ কৰিছে সামগ্ৰিকভাৱে এই গোটেই বস্তুটো টোটেলি কিবা এটা মানসিকতাটো নাইকিয়া কৰিবৰ কাৰণে আমি কেনেধৰণে ইউথ জেনেৰেশ্যনটোক এনকাৰেজ কৰিব পাৰোঁ এইটো মই আপোনাৰ পৰাও জানিব বিচাৰিম সকলোখিনিৰ পৰা বিশেষকৈ ইমান বেছি প্ৰৱণতা গা কৰি উঠিছে আমি কি কৰা উচিত কলিতা ছাৰ
I think there is a problem. We all are aware of the Golden Triangle, which produces drug, and that goes into the Golden Crescent, and then, of course, it goes into various Western countries and all. So, as far as the Northeast is concerned, like I had mentioned in my opening remarks, there is a problem in having a positive control over movement across the border. So, the people who are carrying these drugs or who are involved in this drug trafficking from that Golden Triangle where the drugs are being produced through Manipur or Mizoram or in Nagaland, and then they consolidate in some places in Assam, and then thereafter it is transported to the balanced part of the country. So it has over the years become a profitable business where fringe criminal elements have started getting involved in this drug trafficking because of the huge margins of profit that are involved. So there are various sections of people involved in this drug trafficking. It's not only one section of people. The one which produces, somebody who transports, somebody who collects, and then thereafter it is transported again. So there are various stages through which this drug trafficking carries on. And the basic problem which we find in controlling the inflow of drug from the Myanmar side is basically because of the free movement which takes place. Just to give you an example, to put some data in place, in 2014, the Assam Rifle, which is deployed along the Myanmar border, had confiscated drug worth of about only 10 crores. It rose to, in 2020-21, about 1,000 to 1,100 crores worth of drugs, which has been confiscated. That has been confiscated. We don't know how much of it has already passed. So I think we need to address all these elements which are involved at different stages to ensure that this flow of drug into Assam or Northeast stops. And thereafter, of course, nothing can substitute the awareness campaign which need to be driven by all agencies. It's not only the responsibility of the government, it's the responsibility of the elders, the entire community as such, to spread the awareness campaign for the youth of the area not to get involved in such practices. I think that's the only way.
Exactly. GP Singh sir, firstly, I give my honor to Assam Police to take their initiative against drugs. And you say something about this issue, how to...
You have to understand the perspective. When the present Chief Minister took office on
Exactly.
May 10th, 21, on the same evening around 6:37, we had a meeting where Honorable Chief Minister presided, and I was there, the Home Department officials were there, and 5-6 points were laid out which were sort of zero tolerance or no-go area. Drugs was on top of that. Drugs was there, then rhino poaching was there, insurgency was there, then theft and transport of crude oil was there, cattle smuggling was there. About 6-7 core areas of policing on which we were told that these are zero tolerance areas and you have to put the might of entire Assam police behind this. So we started on that, and results have been quite stupendous. In the last 1.5 years since that day, we have been able to seize drugs worth about 900 crores in Assam, and almost 6,900 people have been arrested over the period of 1.5 years. And for the first time, we have been able to put the preventive detention sections of PIT NDPS Act so that the people are detained for 2 years, even if they get bail in their original cases. But there is a very, very stringent guideline for that, that they have to be arrested for more than once in NDPS cases, and there is a process of entire thing. So that is the kind of effort that has been made by your brothers and sisters in police. We are, when I sit here and say I am only taking the credit for the extremely hard work that has been done by the rank and file of Assam police. We have only been providing them logistic and otherwise support, but most of the good work has been done by the young constables, sub-inspectors, inspectors and DSPs of Assam police. We have seen during this 1.5 year that lot of cartels, they started luring our police people with huge amounts of money. But they decided that they will stand by the policy of government and take action against the drug cartels. So a lot of action has been taken. Coming back to what you were saying, and the answer has very aptly been given by General Kolita, that reformation or consumption of drug, this has to be controlled basically by society, and then other stakeholders can be various governmental agencies. But again, I would say it's something that many of you may or may not like, but if all of us spend more time with our families, we know what are the youngsters in the family doing. If we spend time, if we talk to them as brothers, sisters, parents, uncle, aunt, that what are they doing? What is happening in their life? Most of the people fall in trap of the drugs because they have no way to stem their angst or vent their anger or their depression or things like that. So if we provide them good quality time within the family, with friends, I think a large part of our work as far as consumption of drugs is concerned is done. We have basically 3 parts of it: the supply, transport and consumption. And fourth is reformation or rehabilitation. So consumption part and of course the rehabilitation part, a major role has to be played by the society, and that has to be done by all of us together. We cannot say that this has to be done by X, Y or Z. All of us, when we put our heads together and work out a strategy, and most important, friends, the most important thing, again and again I would reiterate, is we have to spend time with those youngsters who are vulnerable to consumption of drugs. If as friends, if as family we give time, things would be taken care of.
Thank you. Thank you, Kolita sir, GP Singh sir, Sanjay Hazarika, Chuimal Prachaj, Aminallah.
Thank
now
you,
we're going to the question and answer round.
I can't leave the temptation of throwing open such a great panel to the students and the invitees. There are so many questions. I have about 10. I don't know how many of I can accommodate. Again, repeating, don't waste time. Pointed question. I'm also expecting very sharp answers from you so that I can accommodate all the 10. First is Bidisha Das, Delhi University, to Sanjay Hazarika on immigration.
Warm greetings to all the panelists. My question is for Sanjay Hazarika sir. Sir, there has been a famous narrative of immigrants and land. It's basically them coming and taking our land. But on the other hand, in Assam, if we see the constant alienation of tribal communities from their own land by the state itself, and the lack of land reforms. For example, there has not been land cadastral survey since 1964. So in that case, do you think this narrative that has been propagated by the elite is correct, or is it just a simple case of caste and class? Thank you.
Good question. That's to you.
It's a very complex question, and it's a very complex issue, because land is at the heart of every identity conflict in the Northeast. Whether it is in a home, Mati is identity. Who controls it, who uses it, who is the beneficiary from it. And it goes back to the 1930s and 40s, when the negotiations between Gopinath Bordula, Sadullah, and all those, that group, Rohini Chaudhary, took place. And the line issues were developed, the blocks were developed, and so on. Now, I think in the narrative, the us versus them it's too simplistic, because Assam is a nation, is a sort of a state where there are large minorities. You know, there are no great majorities, but large minorities, and each group is very intent on controlling its own lands. I think that the critical point here is that the cadastral survey needs to be done. It needs to be done properly. It can't be done in a haphazard way, because it is an extremely sensitive issue. And to blame the problem
No, this is such a sensitive issue and complex one. You can go on giving answer for almost 1 hour.
No, but I'm saying we cannot blame any one group for the situation that has existed.
I would like to accommodate actually more question. That's why I'm in a hurry. So Brangshu Sharma. So Brangshu, you have a question on China, probably for the general.
Yeah, for the general and also for Submal sir. We have always known about the role of China, the invisible hand of China in abetting insurgency in the region. However, as we have seen coming down of insurgency now, we have also seen the belligerency of China, the rising China. So do you see any role of China in terms of information warfare or any terms of warfare in the region? And if yes, what's the way to tackle it? Thank you.
To the general.
We all are familiar, like you had mentioned, with the history of development of insurgency in the 60s and 70s, when NSA and IM and the other cadres had gone across to the China, Yunnan province to be specific for training and all. And at that point of time, even the arming of these insurgent groups were mainly carried out with the help of the Chinese. But things have changed now drastically over the years. While outside support or some sort of covert support to the insurgent group cannot be ruled out in any case, because everybody wants to be a player as long as there is something is going on in the northeastern part. In the earlier times, through Bangladesh or East Pakistan prior to 71, Pakistan played a huge role in fomenting insurgency in the northeast. But thereafter, of course, Pakistan influence is no longer there. But then in the name of religion, there has been increased radicalization which has been taking place, like PFI, which has been unearthed some time back. As far as the role of China is concerned, we are always conscious of the fact that it can influence because of the huge capacity they have. So we are conscious of the fact, and I think the government or the security forces are taking adequate precautionary measures to ensure that it doesn't happen. And basic thrust of the government has been to resolve the issues. If you are able to resolve the issues that are going on, like in Nagaland or in Manipur, I don't think any country can come and play any role here.
Thank you, sir. Karismita Bhuya is about digital security, I believe. Karismita, that's question to Subimal.
Good afternoon to all the panelists. My question is that, like, as we are living in a digital era, social media is now influencing subversion activities in terrorism. So, like, what are the solutions for this concern?
I think Subimal can answer it better.
Yeah, I think social media has its good and bad things, and definitely it's a medium today for recruiting, influencing youngsters. And so, one of the first steps is to protect oneself. You can have something like a cyber hygiene for yourself. There are various protective measures, best practices that are always put through the various service providers, various social media, social activist groups and all. So I think one has to follow some certain guidelines and build their own discipline. See, traps around cybercrime happen. Social media is a big enabler. But at the end of the day, you only have to protect yourself. And, Subhrangshu had also mentioned about the information warfare part. General Saab had answered. But I want to say that China's PLA has a big focus on cyber warfare and definitely targets others. But, our capabilities are also to decipher, to sort of track them, to be able to nullify them is also not bad. We are moving ahead with the time. So apart from what you see from the...
Can you cut it down? Yeah, because I have...
Various organizations, even the defense forces are also very good in information.
I have tempted to at least pick up one more question, two actually. It's a mouth-watering question from Sachin. I don't know whether General will be answering you in that platform. Anyway, Sachin, you can go ahead. Maybe to classify the question. Sachin is from BBC.
Good afternoon, everyone. This question is for Lieutenant General Kolita, external security related, and he's a truly towering figure from our region. The question is actually against the backdrop of what we are seeing in Ukraine. Some of the simplest Western systems are proving superior to some of the heavy-duty Russian systems. Against that backdrop, how well positioned are we in the eastern sector with a predominantly Russian arsenal?
Quite a mouth-watering question.
Quick answer is yes, we are quite well prepared. Short answer to your question is yes. Of course, like you had brought out, we are dependent on Russian equipment over the years, but in last about 10 years, things have changed. So we are migrating from the Russian equipments to the other sort of equipments from the different countries as well. And as at the same time, we are also going into self-reliance in defense in a large way. You are familiar that recently the government has announced the policy of all procurement, defense-related procurement has to be from the own manufacturers only. So in last couple of years, there has been a change in the import of the equipment which are defense-related. And as of now, as far as Eastern sector is concerned, there is no cause of worry. Let me assure all of you.
Thank you. Last question from here. There's the last question from our own family.
Last one.
Last question from our own family. Managing editor of Pratidin Times, Smitakshi Burwa. She has a question, so over to her.
Sorry, I'll be quick. My question is to GP Singh, Special DGP. So first, congratulations that you all have done so well on the drug trafficking and in nabbing all the drug peddlers. But then, sir, are we working with the neighboring states, the police of neighboring states, because the drugs only doesn't come to Assam, it comes through a route. And are we also working with the neighboring countries like Myanmar, because the kingpins are actually sitting somewhere else, not in Assam? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would give quick answers. Yes, we are working with that. We have anti-drug trafficking officers, nodal officers in all the states, and they are meeting regularly. In fact, taking the entire thing a notch higher, the Union Home Minister has convened 2 meetings in the last 6 months on drug issues within Assam, within Northeast, one in Assam, one was held in Manipur in the last 6 months. The last meeting was of NCB chief along with all the police and anti-narcotic nodal officers on 8th of October, that is about 6-7 days back. And as far as international aspect is concerned, yes, we are flagging all these issues to the Ministry of Home Affairs, which has been taking it up through Ministry of External Affairs and directly also with the neighboring countries. And we have been getting extremely good quality of support from Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram as far as action against drug traffickers in our region is concerned, because these are the three major routes through which the drugs are reaching Assam. And let me also say one thing which people need to know, that all this drug that we have seized is not for Assam. What I have seen on assessment is that about 10 to 12% is meant for consumption within Assam. Rest 88-90% is meant for other parts of the country. So we should not really get alarmed that all these drugs were coming into Assam for consumption into Assam. Assam, because as General Kolita has said, is the only transit route for all these states through the Siliguri corridor to rest of the country. So everything has to pass through Assam. So we are well placed, coordination is good, but we are taking it much higher, and the regional office of Narcotics Control Bureau located in Guwahati has now become quite active.
Thank you, General Ranawata Kolita sir, GP Singh sir, Sanjay Hazarika sir, Suimal Bhattacharjee sir. Actually, I am very lucky to sit with a same guys like you, the great pillars in different field. মই সকলোকে ধন্যবাদ জ্ঞাপন কৰিছোঁ, আৰু যেহেতু আমি সময়তকৈ অকণমান দেৰিকৈ হৈছে, মই অকণমান ক্ষমা বিচাৰিছোঁ সকলোৰে ওচৰত, যাতে 15 মিনিট এটা আমাৰ 20 মিনিট দেৰি হৈছে। যি কি নহওক, এই ছেশ্যনটোৰ ইয়াতে সামৰণি পৰিছে। ইয়াৰ পিছত আৰু বহুকেইটা আকৰ্ষণীয় ছেশ্যন আছে, আমি আগবাঢ়ি যাম। সকলোকে পুনৰ কনক্লেভ 2022 ইয়াত অংশগ্ৰহণ কৰাৰ বাবে আমাৰ দৰ্শকসকলক প্ৰত্যক্ষভাৱে আৰু আমাৰ যিসকল টেলিভিছনৰ দৰ্শক তেখেতসকলক পৰোক্ষভাৱে হয়। Please.
Friends, all of you are here. We have talked about betterment of Assam. What I would suggest is that you all have opportunity to come here and study in Delhi. Please mentor at least 5, 7, 10 students back home. Each one of you identify those 5, 7, 10 young boys and girls back home who do not have the financial or otherwise opportunity to come to Delhi, and please mentor them over the period of next 3 to 4 years. You would see things changing.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.